good to see everybody. Be praying for Jerry Lynch. He's growing a mustache. It makes him look sad. And I don't think Christians ought to look sad, do you? But it just, like he's about to cry. Now it's a paradox. He's laughing and crying at the same time. I don't know, man. I was talking to Bill a while ago. We was talking about Ken Boswell, and I said, ain't he something? I said, that guy thinks different than anybody else. I said, he'll say stuff that nobody would ever think of saying, And he said, yeah, and you put him on that side and Penny Parrish on that side. And he said, boy, you really got something. He said, I believe the Lord has a sense of humor. And I said, yeah, but the joke's on us, See, because we got to put up with their abuse. But anyway, oh, my. I remember several years ago I saw something that I don't guess I'll ever forget. It really blessed my heart. Way back when I was in the meat business and I was delivering meat to Shotgun Sam's, and I delivered some meat, and I went in the office there. I was going to get paid, waiting for the manager to pay me. He had a great big poster there on the wall, and there was a little baby about 6 months old, had like 2 teeth, sitting in a high chair, and had a plate of spaghetti there. And he had the spaghetti up on top of his head. Little babies will take their food and put it up there, and it was hanging down, and he had spaghetti sauce all over his face, and he was just grinning from ear to ear. And the caption was, "This is a day the Lord hath made. Rejoice and be glad in it." And I got thinking about that, and we should rejoice. Every day is an opportunity to serve the Lord. And that little boy was really in trouble, but he didn't care at the time. He was having fun. And, we could have a lot more fun if it wasn't for pride. Isn't that right? Especially at a restaurant, we could eat with our fingers. We could do all that stuff. We wouldn't have to use silverware, But anyway, that really blessed me, because a lot of times when I'm down, and I get down like anybody else, I think of that. And it has to make me smile, and we should stop and remember that every day is a gift from God. It's a gift from God, and when we wake up in the mornings, we should be mindful, and it should be on our mind. And our mind is, how can we use this for Him? How can we glorify Him? How can we advance His kingdom? This morning I began a sermon in Matthew, the 7th chapter. You don't need to turn to that, because I'm not going to read from that, but I'm just going to tell what I preached this morning. Not all of it. I'm just going to give you an overview, and I'm not planning on preaching too long tonight because of my throat. My throat gets hoarse. But I was talking about the 2 foundations, one of sand and one of solid rock. And it says that the wise man builds upon solid rock. And of course, he's talking about the Christian. And when you build on solid rock, you'll have trials. The storms come. The rains descend. The winds blow. But you see, if you're on solid rock, you're still secure. You're still safe. But it doesn't make any difference what you build on sand. I don't care how elaborate, I don't care how beautiful that it is, and as far as the appearance to man, it doesn't matter. It's going to fall. Because the Bible says that the day is going to come when this world is going to pass away with a loud noise and a fervent heat, and it says there's a reason for that. God has a reason. You see, all of this has to be destroyed. And it says there in Hebrews that all these things are going to be shaken. And it said, Lord, speaking of Christ, it said, you created the world and laid the foundations, but it said the day is going to come when they're going to be all folded up like an old garment and laid aside. You see, this is all going to pass away. All that we see now is just temporary. But the reason for it is, it says that which is eternal may remain. You see, when God gets through shaking, we're going to find out that the only things that are eternal remain. The stars are going to fall from a socket. The sun's going to cease to be. All that we can see, because you see, all that we see is just temporary. The eternal things you don't see, but the eternal things shall remain. And I was trying to think of an analogy, and it'd be kind of like if you lost a rare diamond in a barrel of flour. Well, now you can do several things, I suppose. You can just forget about it and say, hey, it's down in there and there's nothing I can do about it. But the logical thing to do would be get a sifter, wouldn't it? And you begin sifting that flour. And I'll guarantee you the diamond will show up. Folks, God's going to sift this whole world. And the only thing that's going to remain is that is on solid rock. Then in Corinthians, and I want to read a little bit because I'm going to assume. Now, folks, if you're not built upon the solid rock, you're in a lot of trouble. And it doesn't matter what you build. It's all going to go. Turn to the 3rd chapter of 1 Corinthians, and I want to read this very briefly, and then we're going to get to 2 Peter. 3rd chapter of 1 Corinthians, 11th verse says, other foundation can no man lay than that is laid, which is Christ Jesus, or Jesus Christ. You see, God had to lay the foundation. God laid the cornerstone. Because only God knows the severe trials and tribulations that's going to come. And only God knows what kind of a foundation that will endure. And so He laid the foundation, and the foundation is the work that the Lord Jesus Christ performed there at Calvary. Now, if any man build upon this foundation, now here's the building material. Gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, and stubble. Every man's work shall be made manifest. For the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire, and the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. If any man's work abide, which he hath built thereupon, he shall receive a reward. In other words, if you built with gold, silver, or precious stones, you'll be rewarded. But if your life and the life you're living is a wood, hay, and stubble, it's all going to go. If you're living just for you, if you're living just for your pleasure, if you're living just for your glory, it's not going to work. If any man's work be burned, he shall suffer loss. But he himself shall be saved, yet so as by fire. You see, if he's got the foundation, he says he'll be saved. But his work's all gone. Wouldn't it be terrible to stand at the bema? Now this judgment, the judgment for Christians is called the bema seat. And the bema seat has to do with a different kind of a judgment that we normally think about. Judges at a boxing match. You see, when boxers get into the ring, the judges don't judge. Their judgment is that man a boxer? They don't, that's not what they're there for, is to decide whether that man's a boxer. All they're there for is to evaluate his performance. Do you see what I'm saying? How many has ever watched I can't pronounce it. I don't even watch it. Calisthenics or calisthenics. You know, where they run and they tumble and they do all that kind of stuff and they flip backwards, and you know what I'm saying? Yes. You know, they ought to do it at the lights out. Don't put it on television, you know, but I guess some people like to watch that kind of stuff, you know. That's as bad as bowling for bucks, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, you see, they have judges there. Now, and they're not judging those young ladies or men or whatever to see if they're gymnasts. That's not their purpose, but how good they are. And that's what the bema seat is. You see, the Christian appears at the bema seat, and when you get to the bema seat, Alan, the purpose isn't to decide whether you're going to heaven or not. That's already been decided at Calvary, you see. But then all of your works since you've been saved will be scrutinized. They'll be observed. They'll be brought to light. Everything that you did for your glory or your recognition will be burned up. Everything you did under the leadership of the Holy Spirit will receive a reward. Everything you've done because the love of Christ constrains you, you'll be rewarded for. Every evil thing you've said, you will not receive a reward for that. You see, and I know that all of us, none of us are going to go to the judgment seat and be rewarded in a positive manner for everything that we've done. But it's all going to be sifted through, it's all going to be gone through, it's all going to be brought to light, and then we're going to receive a reward depending upon what we've done for Christ. Now, wouldn't it be wonderful if there was some way that we knew without a shadow of a doubt that we could live that successful, fruitful, rewarding life that was pleasing to God? Wouldn't that be great? Well, there he is. Turn to Peter. Turn to 2 Peter. First chapter. Simon Peter, a servant and an apostle of Jesus Christ, to them which have obtained like precious faith with us through the righteousness of God and our Savior Jesus Christ. Now, who does he owe salvation to? The Lord Jesus Christ and his righteousness. He says, grace and peace be multiplied unto you. Now, first, notice this. Before you can have peace, you've got to experience grace. See? You have to know the grace of God before you can appreciate or enjoy the peace of God. So he says grace and peace. But now look what he says. He didn't say be added unto you. He says may it be multiplied unto you. How? Through the knowledge of God and of the Lord, and of Jesus our Lord. Now, I did a little studying on this, and this word in this particular place, this knowledge, is epignosis in Greek, epignosis. And it means, and part of the word is gnosis. During that time period, there were people, they were called Gnostics, and it comes from the same word, gnosis, Gnostics, and epignostics. And those were people that declared or believed that they just got divine revelations. They didn't need a word from God. They didn't need the Scripture. God spoke directly to them. Do we have that going on today? The same old Gnosticism. And that was so condemned in the Bible. All these revelations. God told me this. God told me that. See, but he said, I want you to know the super knowledge. What's he referring to? Well, you see, a lot of us trust Christ. A lot of us trust God, but we don't really know Him. And he said, I want you to super know Him. I want you to super know Jesus. And you know, I'm afraid a lot of us know a lot about Him, but we don't really know Him, not deep down. Now, all of us that are old enough, for instance, knew of Eisenhower when he was president. How many is old enough to remember him? Alan don't remember, but you can tell him about it. Tell him about it, yeah. And you know, we've seen newsreels and things that he did and all that, or any president or any great man or any movie star as far as that's concerned. And you can study their life and know a lot about them, but you don't really know them, see. But Peter says that I want you to really know Him. And I want to tell you something. You can know Jesus better than anybody on the planet Earth. Did you know that? You can. Spend time with Him. I think that's where we really fail, is we don't spend enough time alone with Jesus. I always loved that song, In the Garden. I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses. And He walks with me and He talks with me. And He tells me that I am His own. That's what He's talking about. Get along with Jesus. Talk to Jesus. Study His Word. Really get to know Him. Because look why. Now notice why. Because this peace, this grace and peace is multiplied to you through knowing Him. Listen, if you really want power in your life, you get real close to Jesus. Just really know Him. And it seems like you're going to have a peace and a confidence and assurance that the world can't shake. According, verse 3, according as His divine power hath given unto us all things. Whoa, what's he saying here, folks? He's getting ready to say this. There's no excuse for not living a victorious life. Because look at this. According, in other words, the reason for it being, as His divine power hath given unto us all things that pertain unto life and godliness through the knowledge of Him that hath called us to glory and virtue. Now this knowledge is not epignosis, but just gnosis. And what does he mean there? Study the Word. Know something about Him. Know what He says. You can't know what He wants you to do until you know what He says. Study the Word. And God gives you that power, and through that knowledge, you see. Now notice this, something else. Whereby are given unto us exceeding great and precious promises, that by these you might be partakers of the divine nature. The divine nature. Folks don't realize it, but if you're saved, you have the divine nature. You have God's nature. But unfortunately, we find in Romans, you still have the Adam nature. And that's where the problem comes in. Isn't that right? There's always that warfare going on. How many times have you woke up on Sunday morning, think, boy, I need to go to church. I don't want to come to church. But the old flesh says, you're too tired. Besides, the fish are biting. Besides, it's deer season. I like to pick on Wayne. I'll introduce you to him after church is over. He hadn't been here for a while. But that's the old Adam nature, and there's a warfare going on. But he says we can be victorious through the divine nature, and he's getting ready to show us how that can be. Because notice this. Now this is very important. That ye might be partakers of the divine nature, having, past tense, escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. All right, now keep this in mind. This is very important. Now, if you will look over here in another chapter, and in fact, it's chapter 2. You can look if you want to. When you get home, you can read it. You see, it is possible to escape the pollution of the world without being saved. That's external. You can wash your hands. You can turn over a new leaf. But you cannot escape the corruption of the world, because that's internal, except through the new birth, by having the nature of the Father. Now please keep this in mind. Now when the prodigal went off in the far country, he was able to go because he had the old nature. He went off down there, he squandered all of his living. There was a famine in the land. He wound up in a hog pen. He was right there with the hogs and the slop. The reason he was able to do that was because of the old nature. But the reason he went home was because he had the Father's nature. There was that longing there. I will arise and go to my Father. You see, the pigs didn't get up and go. They didn't have the divine nature. They didn't have the nature of the Father. You see, because he had the nature of the Father, he hated the mud. And there's a lot of Christians out there that, they're out in sin, but they're hating it. They're hating it. They're in it because they still have the old nature. But they're hating it because they also have the divine nature. One time an evangelist years ago was going through, and he preached a revival, and there's an old Indian chief got saved. And as soon as the revival was over, he got on the train and he left, and about a year later he come back through there and he saw the old chief, and he said, "Well, Chief, how are you doing since you got saved?" And he said, "Like two bulldogs fighting in me all the time." And he said, "Well, which one wins?" And he said, "The one me say sick 'em to." Boy, there's a lot of truth to that. What I'm saying is this. You can pray and you can study. Then you're saying sick 'em to the divine nature. If you feed the flesh, you're saying sick 'em to the Adam nature. And he said, that depends on me. It's whichever one I say sick 'em to. How many times have you wanted to do something and it was wrong, and you knew you shouldn't do it, you shouldn't even want to do it, you were convicted about it, but you went ahead and said sick 'em to it anyway and just went on and did it? Am I the only one? Woo, I wish I hadn't asked that question then, since I found out I was the only one. Maybe I'm just the only one that's experiencing the divine nature right now. I think the rest of you are lying. I think the rest of you have the old Adam nature. You did it. You knew it was wrong. You went ahead and did it anyway. See, that's saying sick 'em. That's just saying sick 'em to the old Adam nature. But did you ever notice when you went ahead and did it, the next day you went, "Oh, I wish I'd have went to church. Now I feel guilty." What usually happens in a case like that? You don't go next Sunday. You know why you don't go next Sunday? Because everybody's going to say, "Where was you last Sunday?" You just kind of go into a spiral. But now look here. It doesn't have to be that way, folks. Peter says, here's how you can guard against that. God has given you great and precious promises. Now here's what he says to do. Back in chapter 1. Verse 5. Here's the starting point. And besides all of this, besides the fact that he's given you a divine nature, besides the fact that he's given you the precious promises, and besides this, giving all diligence. Boy, now that's something that's just foreign to most of us. The Christian life for most of us is like a hobby. He said, be diligent. Take your Christian experience serious. Be diligent. That should be foremost, and the most important thing in your life is to live in such a way that at the Bema seat, God is pleased with you. He's pleased with your life. That should be the most important thing in my life and in your life. Notice. And besides all this, giving all diligence, add to your faith. He didn't say go get some faith. He says add to it. Why did he say go get some faith? Because faith is a gift of God. You're saved by grace through faith. And that not of yourself, but is a gift of God. You're given the faith. That's the starting point. You see, folks, getting saved is the starting point. But we're going to find out, and I hope I have time to get to it, and I don't think I will, so I'm going to go over here and read it real quick so you don't miss this. Verse 9. Then I'm going to go back and cover these things that he's talking about. But he that lacketh these things is blind and cannot see afar off, and hath forgotten that he was purged from his old sins. Okay, now what does it mean? What that actually means, that comes from a Greek word that has to do with, and I can't remember the eye disease, but it has to do with eye disease. And it means he's nearsighted. You see, a lot of people, folks, think you get saved and that's it. You're on your way to glory, you know. Now just go out and do whatever you want to do. You're saved. And he said those people are stupid. In other words, he said those people are nearsighted. They can't see afar off. They forgot that God forgave their sins and saved them for a reason. And they think that's all. Just get saved and boy, you're on your way to glory. Do whatever you want to do. Once saved, always saved. So just live it up. Do whatever you want to do. But look what he says. They can't see far off. They don't understand what God has planned for their life. Now, let's go back now. He says, add to your faith virtue. Now, this word virtue had a different meaning when this was written in the King James than it does now. The Old English had a different meaning. It meant excellence or courage. Start out courageous. You know, I hate to see someone get saved and they won't tell anybody, and you just have to worm it out of them. See, the first thing you want to do is when you get saved is be courageous. I like to see one stand up and say, yes, I got saved. I like to see new Christians give their testimony. Be courageous. Then to that, let's see, wait a minute. Add excellence or virtue or courage, and to courage, knowledge. You know what? It's appalling. It's appalling how many Christians can't tell you the first 5 books of the Bible. They know nothing about the Scriptures. We're supposed to live on every word that proceedeth from the mouth of God, and they can't tell you a thing about the Word of God. I hate to say this, but I have people ask me some of the dumbest questions that I'm talking about people that have been saved for a long time. And they ask me questions they should have known the first 6 weeks they got saved. That tells me they've never opened their Bible. They're not growing. They're not learning. But he says, if you want to be successful in life, if you would stand before God, want to stand there and hear him say, well done, thou good and faithful servant, he said, learn the Bible. Be courageous, study God's Word, and learn the Bible. Now, why? Because he has a reason for that. And to knowledge, temperance. From that word we get the word temper. But it actually means self-control. Have self-control. Be disciplined. I believe we're the most undisciplined people in the world. No discipline in our life. And I have to confess, I am the world's worst. I need that one, bad. I can't tell you how many times I've decided I'm getting in shape. My wife even bought me some jogging shoes 2 years ago. They're just like new. We're going to put them in this year's Falls Creek deal. Here a while back, you know, and I have good intentions, but I don't have any discipline. I don't have any self-control. Boy, I turn on television. But I know I need it. I'm getting older. I need to get in shape. I really do. And I was watching television. Boy, they had one of them ski things, you know. I wish they'd put some fat slob on there, you know, but they don't. They always put somebody that really looks good, you know. You think, hey, you know, boy, 30 days, I'm going to look like that, have rippling muscles. You know, well, I bought it. I had to assemble it myself, which means I didn't get it together before Susie got home. Otherwise, I bought the kind you slide on the bed. See, because I know how I am. If I don't use it, I better hide it. You know, but she come in and I just getting it. Oh, you bought something else. Oh, you will never use it. Oh, yes, I will. Yes, I will. And I'll tell you, I fooled her. I did. I used it 2 days. And it was there in the front room for a long time. Finally, she said, would you get this out of here? So now it's in the bedroom standing up against the wall. You know, I don't have, you know, and that's terrible. People need self-control. They need discipline. They need to do the things that's important to do in your life. And it's the same way with Bible study. How many times have you vowed, I'm going to start out and I'm going to read the Bible all the way through this year? You get to the 3rd chapter of Genesis. And then about October you think, I don't remember the first 3 chapters. I better start over. Because, you know, and then you don't get nowhere with it anyway. But he said, listen, if you want to be successful, be disciplined. Have courage. Study the Word. Be disciplined. And that entails a lot of things. Another form of discipline is be faithful to God. Come to church, whether you want to or whether you don't. You know, a lot of people do what's fun. It's always easy to do what's fun. You don't have to twist my arm to do what's fun. But what he's saying is do what's right, whether it's fun or not. It's not always fun to get up and go teach a Sunday school class, is it, Marion? And I remember when he first started out, that guy was a nervous wreck. And he would probably rather go to his own hanging than face his Sunday school class. And he called me on Sunday morning. He'd been studied all week, and he just didn't have the confidence. He said, well, what about this verse? I don't know. But he did what was right. He was disciplined, and he went on, and he kept on, and he kept on. Yeah, but he's still doing it. See, that's the sign of a man. That's the sign of a Christian that's growing, is that they do it because it's right, not just because it's fun. And he said, if you want to be successful, add your faith courage, then knowledge, and then self-control or discipline, and then patience. And this word patience here is not like don't honk when you're behind somebody at a red light and they don't move. But it means through trials, endure. Just keep on, keeping on. You come to church and somebody says something that hurts your feelings, just keep on coming on anyway. See? Now notice this. And to patience, godliness. Folks, live right. Live right. Live godly in the world. Live in such a way you don't have to wear a little badge that says, I'm a Christian. They ought to know that by the glow in your eyes and the Holy Spirit that engulfs you. One time there's a young man, a teenager, he got saved, and as soon as he got saved, he went off to Oregon, worked in a lumber camp all summer, and he come back, and the preacher said, well, how did you make it with your Christian life? And he said, fine, nobody found out. And unfortunately, that's the way most of us live. Nobody knows you're saved on the job because you're not Spirit-filled. Boy, I'll tell you what, that's what I like about the little ladies of this church. You don't have to ask them if they're saved. They're just radiating the Holy Spirit. They're walking in the Lord. They fellowship with Him every day and all day. Then you add godliness, and then to godliness, brotherly kindness, brotherly love. Love the brothers. Love your brothers. And then notice he added to that charity. But the word charity means love. What's he referring there? What he means is this. Love the brethren, but then love the lost world too. Have love for the sinner. You don't love his ways, but you love his soul because Jesus died for him. Now notice, for if these things be in you and abound, They make you that ye shall neither be barren, and that word means idle. You won't be idle. You show me a person who's spirit-filled, and I'll guarantee you they're not idle. They're either praying, they're studying, they're witnessing, they're visiting, they're doing something. He says, and if you have these virtues, and they abound in you, you'll not be idle nor unfruitful in the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. But he that lacketh these things is blind and cannot see afar off, and hath forgotten. In other words, he doesn't even realize why God saved him. That God wants better things than just, listen, when you got saved, it's supposed to be more than just fire insurance, folks. He saved you for a reason, and that reason is that your life would glorify him. Now notice verse 10. Wherefore the rather, brethren, give diligence to make your calling and election sure. For if you do these things, you shall never fall. Now wait a minute. Now that's kind of a strange verse, because can you make the election calling of God sure? Why, of course not, because that's something that was settled before eternity. The election calling of God. What's he mean then? You can know that you're saved. That's what he means. Now please keep in mind, security of the believer is I'm trying to think the word, is objective. That's something that is settled by the Word of God. But assurance of your salvation is subjective. You see, even though you might be saved, if you're living out in the world and you're doing things, you're down in the hog pen, you may not feel saved. You may go to bed at night thinking, man, am I really saved? And we have people in the church occasionally, they will come up and rededicate their life. They say, Jerry, I'm not sure I'm saved. Well, if they're saved, they're saved. But you see, the difference is they may not know it. And that's what he's saying. And if you will do all these things, if you see that you're not barren, you're bearing fruit, then you know that you're saved. You'll not fall from that steadfastness. You won't have to wonder. You won't have to go look up an old baptismal certificate to see if you were saved or not. So, folks, there's no excuse for being at the judgment bar of God. No excuse whatsoever. And that's scary, isn't it? The fact that we don't have an excuse. If we stand there without any rewards, if we stand there and haven't done anything to glorify him, we don't have an excuse, because he said, I gave you precious promises, and I gave you instructions, I gave you the Holy Spirit, I give you all that you need to live a victorious, successful, happy life full of joy and fruit. How are you building? Are you building on sand? Well, if you're building on sand, you're lost. But you might be saying, well, Jerry, I'm building on the solid rock. Praise God. Yes, but what are you building with? Hay, wood, or stubble? Or silver, gold, and precious stones? Peter tells you how you can be sure that you're building with silver, gold, and precious stones by doing these things. Listen, this should be something that this first chapter should be something that all of us go home and study over and over and over and over till it's so ingrained in us. Rather than just hearing it and say, well, wasn't that nice? And go out and forget all about it. Boy, we got to go home and say, now what's the first thing I'm supposed to do? Boy, I have it memorized. The first thing that I need to add to my faith is courage. I can do it, Archie. I can live that victorious life. I'm going to set out tomorrow, and I'm going to have the courage to start. And then I'm going to add to that epignosis, super knowledge of Christ. I'm going to get to know him like I've never known him. I'm going to pray. I'm going to fellowship. I'm going to study. I'm going to do all, because then I want to add, you see, temperance. And then I want to add the rest of those virtues, because listen, at the end of my time when I stand before him, I want a crown to lay at his feet. And I want him to say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Let's stand. I know we've already sang Amazing Grace, but listen, we're not going to wear that song out. Let's sing it one more time, all right?